A week after I'd moved to Montana, long enough that the only wine bar in town had rejected me, even though I'd made flashcards and memorized facts about varietals of grapes, for lack of experience, when I got a job at a bar at a place called Buck's Club. So there were some hints from the beginning that it wasn't going to be a good fit. It was literally on the other side of the train tracks because I had to cross a set of railroad tracks to get there. It was dark at 2 p.m. when I interviewed. There was a bright kind of fluorescent sign out front, and the first customer I met who was sitting at the one slot machine they had in there was named Virgil, Virgil as in Dante's Guide Through the Underworld. He had a long, scraggly, kind of sad Santa Claus beard, and also problems with vision, which again, Virgil, I think, was a blind poet. But the fact that I felt deeply uncomfortable in the bar made sense to me and was something I wanted, because part of the reason to be a bartender, I didn't just want employment that I could travel with or take advantage of in an economic recession. I wanted a job that would build character. I was deeply uncomfortable in, I would say, almost every situation, talking to waiters, getting hit on, moving across the country. And so, again, I just thought I should be a bartender, I should exposure therapy, just like straight on. So there were some things that I liked from the get-go about being a bartender. I liked having regulars. I liked knowing their drinks. Early on, One-Eyed Phil, a logger with a glass eye and a mullet, who drank 2 shots of Yukon Gold and a tall boy, and gave $2 tips, was sort of a classic favorite. And there was this guy named Matt, a metal worker who would get trashed on his lunch break, who would read the book reviews I was writing in the local newspaper, and also whatever book I had behind the bar. So we had a miniature book club where we talked about What If the Moon Didn't Exist, a book of speculative physics. And Matt was smart, and he really got into it. We had long conversations about how gravity would have been different. And a few weeks in, my boss, Big Tom, told me that he needed me to cocktail waitress an event we were having in an evening. It was hip-hop dance party nights in Missoula, Montana. And I'm a team player, And so I said, sure, I can't wait for the fast-paced world of cocktail waitressing. And I wore a turtleneck and was walking around, and there was, a little pushback from some of the customers. For instance, there was a college student who ordered 3 rounds of vodka Red Ball for him and his friends. And by the third one, I said with all sincerity, I said, don't you know that consuming stimulants and depressants at the same time is really bad for your heart? And he said, get me another waitress. And I did. But about at 10 p.m., the atmosphere of the room changed, and all of the hip-hop dancers took their tops off. And they were all women. And I didn't know where to look, so I just kept looking at the customers, including a man who was older than my father. And he handed me $5 before I even gave him a drink and said, "This is for keeping your shirt on." And I said, "Sir, I will be doing that all night." And so the next day on my day shift, I saw Big Tom, and I requested as professionally as I could that I not work when there were going to be half-naked women, because it made me very uncomfortable. And he said, okay, well, that just means you're on the day shift permanently. And the day shift largely consisted of flipping burgers, because Buck's had a burger and a beer for $1 special. And I liked that, and I leaned into becoming an excellent burger flipper and having more book club moments with Matt. I also had a cook I had a cook for 2 hours in the morning who was a former Las Vegas madam, and tried to give me a little experience, a little local color. And she told me that one of her daughters was one of the dancers, and told me that she made 3 times the money I made in a week on a single shift, which I believed. And she also taught me important things like what the term working girl means. There was one day that this woman came into the bar and she was talking to Phil, Phil the logger. And he offered to buy her a drink, and I thought, oh, this is going to be so embarrassing for Phil. She is out of his league. And she let him buy her a drink, and then she kept telling him she needed a ride somewhere. And I, straight out of college with like my sexual assault training, I kept offering her waters. And when he left and went to the bathroom, I said, listen, if you need a ride somewhere to your job, I'm off shift in an hour and I'd be happy to take you. And she reached across the table and touched my head and said, oh, honey, like, you're sweet, but I'm fine. And my cook took me aside and said, you need to stop. She is a working girl. And I said, yeah, I think she needs a ride to get to work. That's why I'm trying to offer it to her. And she said, no, she's a working girl. Riding Phil is her job. And I watched her leave with Phil, and I felt a little older and a little sadder. A few weeks later, at the beginning of my shift, a policeman walks into the bar. And he wants security footage because someone got shivved the day before on the day shift. And this is where I learned the verb shiv. I didn't realize there's actually a difference between a shivving and a stabbing, and it involves the implement that someone uses. The stabbing needs to be a traditional weapon, whereas a shivving is something that has been fashioned into a weapon, so you usually hear it in the context of prisons. But in this context, it was in the day shift at Bucks Club. And so the police officer, who's wearing this cute little vest, is asking me for the security footage, and I ask him what happened, and I'm looking for blood on the floor, and he tells me it was Merck. It was Merck, one of my regulars, who gives me his phone number every day, but never asks for mine, which I appreciate. And the police officer is actually telling me, even though Merck's the victim, they're having trouble getting in touch with him. And they want a few more details because the circumstances of the stabbing are vague. And I say, oh, do you need Merck's number? I have it over here. He gives it to me every time. And I just pull it off of my pad and hand it over to the police officer. And he says, like, thank you for giving me information for Mr. Mercury. And Merck's a construction worker, so I know this means he's going to miss several shifts. And that is the day I decided that I had, at that point, built enough character.